Hello everyone and welcome to my painting demonstration. And today I'll be working in watercolor, and I've got some gorgeous Scottish mountains in front of me today. Again, I'm painting Hidden Valley and some of the peaks surrounding the area. I've already done it in acrylics, and I'm interested to explore a bit of watercolor. And I'm also interested in showing the way I'll be developing the work and kind of thinking about how do I proceed with the watercolor. Now, easiest stage is always to get started is the drawing, because it makes us think, plan things. And then with watercolor, the painting itself not always take too long, but the planning of it and exploring certain elements, for example, how do I paint sky? What do I do with textures of the mountains? Do I bring any other materials? How do I apply washes? What colors do I use? Testing and trying them before actually doing the painting. So that's what I'd like to do. I'm going to do a pencil sketch, pencil drawing on my actual paper, and then I'll use some spare paper to do some experiments and then put it all together. Right, so I've got a photo of me here, which I don't think I'm going to put myself in there. But I'm interested into the mountains and just showing kind of the depth of it all there. So let's have a look. I'm going to start from planning my horizon. I've got a reasonably elongated piece, and actually I might plan it tiny bit less square-like. I might just make it a little bit narrower, so I'm gonna move my tape. Now I'm paying attention to my format of the picture. Okay, I just put a mark here at the bottom so we can see the end of my painting later on. Right, so now I can plan my sky line. Okay, perhaps somewhere here I'll have that block of cooler mountains at the back. I'm going to find this peak coming down. Quite like using straightish lines and kind of breaking the shape with blocks. Okay, so it just gives me a little bit of understanding of form there. Now, with watercolors, I tend to draw quite lightly, but for the camera to pick up my line, I have to press on the pencil a little bit harder than normal. So if you'll be doing your own attempt of this piece, maybe just stay with some lighter lines. Got this lovely ridge coming and zigzagging. Or I might actually drop this ridge a little bit lower. So I'm planning my own composition. I don't want to have direct copying. I quite like kind of amending things, moving things about. Yeah, I've got this broken path, eroded ledge. It's quite a steep drop here, right on the border. So by painting it slightly stronger in contrast, perhaps, will be the best way to show it. So I've got some extra depth past, so that erosion is turning. Okay, let's double check this almost like a backbone. Maybe I'll stretch it a bit further out. So I'm thinking of shapes. There is a lot of ways we can create a sketch for watercolor. We can look for line, we can look for color, we can look for shape. I think looking at light and dark shapes is easier. Okay, let's find now a little bit of details of the mountain ridge here. If I'll find my valley. Okay, that lovely V shape. The more we sketch and plan or work from a similar view, we use different media, we start recognizing shapes and familiarizing ourselves with them more and more, and becomes not just easier, but we also find other elements within the landscape we might have not seen earlier. Okay, I might just change these directions. So I'm spotting exciting textures here. Some of the lovely rock formations. There's lots of loose stone there as well. Okay, and bottom of the valley, got a lovely shadow as the valley would come out from the flatter kind of parallel running valley, going all the way down, all the way up over this mini ridge, and again slightly lower down and in the flat area of the valley. That is the hidden valley. If you ever been there, I might just create this river a little bit more, maybe less zigzag. I just want to exaggerate its movement. And then finally we're going up, 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 up to where we are. Right, so maybe a smaller zigzag and around the mountain. Trying to think of bringing this river a little bit more close to me. Maybe somewhere deliberately bringing the valley in. Okay, that's kind of so all of this connects together. I'm going to find the pattern. I'm looking for some of the slopes. So I'm looking for the river itself, kind of the river, the beginning of the river, but also I'm trying to connect it to the composition I want to create. Maybe this one is here and then that zigzags out. Maybe hidden behind some of the slopes. I want to vary the directions of the slopes here as well. So they're not all parallel lines. There is a range of shapes here. Okay. That's better. And then this side of the valley could have a little flatter surfaces. And only after that, it's going to start going up again. Again, so I'm making those adjustments and thinking through it. Okay. And then I have a lovely ridge behind. And there are some shadows and in the breaking of the rock. Yeah. And now I'm going to focus on my horizon. So I know I'm going to need that line. I can plan my mountains perhaps a little higher and a little bit more exciting, just to make the image to stand out a bit more. So this is a much taller peak here than my darker tones, and these are going to be my blue cooler mountains at the back. Okay. I've got some exciting clouds here, so I can get the direction of the clouds coming somewhere here. Can work perhaps with the sponge. Okay. Again, it's enough, just a suggestion of the direction. I'm planning more of the darkness behind the mountains. Right, let's have a look now at the slopes, the direction of the slopes of this main peak. So we have loads of lines coming down here, and then we've got more verticals or semi-verticals shapes, which show that is something more of the rock climbing quality here. So you can walk on top of the ridge, so that's where we went to ended up walking here, and then on the top, across around, turn around, and then come back. Couldn't find the path. I think it's all collapsed, so we had a plan B to follow our steps. I think there must have been a landslide. It wasn't overly safe to go down the other way. So understanding those mountains or those landscapes you walked in make more sense. Right, so these slopes, okay, gives that kind of direction. So I'm following the form. Okay, and I'm interested to find perhaps a lovely shadow somewhere here, and again those beautiful shadows are very treacherous. So that mountain almost splits in light. Okay, so for the watercolor, I can quite happily go and explore with my brush and the sponge. If I want to have a little bit more understanding, planning of my shadows, I'll do a little more thorough study. Okay, so perhaps a few things will be changing it. As I've turned the river a little bit more, I need to adjust that as well. Okay. And you can still a little bit of snow still in some of the areas. It was mid-May, but still higher up in the mountains. And we'll see the snow. Right, these lines are a little bit too parallel. can I change them? Good, and any other darker shapes, any distinctive shapes? Okay, that's will be fine then. Okay. Oh, this one is good. Oh, that's will be a nice, lovely darkness here as well. Okay, so that's as much more. So I'm following kind of some of these lines. I think that one is going to go further down rather than flattening here. Okay, now all of those ones are going to come in there. So I've got some lovely range of greens and purples, and I want to play and explore these colors there as well. Okay. Right, next, I'm just going to explore different elements of the painting. For example, I'm interested to test some of the colors for the sky and maybe just play with the sky. How would I paint it with a sponge, with a brush, maybe a little bit of both. So I have my sponge, which I can just soak in the pot, rinse it really well. Tend to dry my fingers as well, so there's no extra water. And perhaps use a little bit of ultramarine and indigo. So I've got some indigo, a little bit of ultramarine, and perhaps even start with a bit of that tonal playfulness of the clouds. So just pressing on the sponge a little bit more, just smudging it, just dragging it, maybe increasing the darkness. I'm just looking at some of the shadows here. So if I were to press on the sponge a little bit more and kind of squeeze some of that paint. Okay, maybe use the back of the sponge to drag some kind of the tone out. A bit tiny bit more moisture and bringing extra darkness to both ultramarine and indigo. Okay, and what about going slightly paler? Okay, so it gives me time to think, to play with the materials, to relax. Because the moment you say to yourself, I have to paint a masterpiece, everything goes wrong. And with watercolors especially, you can only do it once, or you start again. So you explore and practice and play, and only after that we get to the stage we want. Okay, so maybe some of these will be my exploring type of mark making. Okay, something runny here. The watercolor often stains a sponge. This means it's a dirty sponge. So if you were to use it, don't be scared of that. I'm also going to try a little bit of the brushwork. If I were to pick up extra depth. Okay, and I can still use a sponge to soften some of the borders. Just playing with that option of making something a little bit more soft and sharp and increasing that. So I'm just kind of trying a couple of versions of the clouds here. What about if I'll add a little more color? For example, a hint of ochre or a little bit of orange and a little bit of violet will give me, if I'll go for a lighter version, will give me a bit of warmth. Let's see if I'll go paler. Okay, maybe a little bit of warmth from the orange. So by the time I'll get some blues here as well, hopefully the plan is we'll have just a hint of that warmth. Okay, that's a bold orange. I don't think I'll need that, but it's okay to bring it in to test things. Okay, I'm controlling how much water I'm adding to the shapes. Okay, a bit of extra darkness, a little bit of playfulness from the brush. Perhaps a little bit of that warmth, perhaps applying that warmer color earlier and then letting it dry before it's too runny. Okay, that's exciting. Turbulence there as well. Also, what about if we were to go a little bit more into the violet than the orange? Okay, but diluted version. It might just be too pale gray against it. So see how that works. The moment I'll add too bright sky, too bright boldness of the sky, I'll have a sunny day, but I want to have that grim day, so my blue will not quite work here. I want that lovely grim darkness at the back. Okay. So clouds are getting more idea what I want to do with the clouds. I think I'm going to use both a little bit of diluted violet and a little bit of that mixture of orange and violet with my indigos. But I might also add a little hint of Payne's Grey to the darker blues to add extra drama. So I might plan that extra darkness there. Okay, now I'm going to play with some of the colors of the mountains next. So then I can compare the colors I'm using for the clouds, that they will work with my colors of the mountains too. Okay, maybe my initial thoughts here will be some of the oranges again. Again, I might just place the colors over each other. I've got some magenta here. Actually, that's quinacridone, rose. So I've got a bit of pink, a bit of orange. Perhaps so bringing some stronger color to the mountains, perhaps bring a little extra of that violet as part of the shadows and letting the colors blend and play. But also I do like using a dry pigment. So for example, some extra dark tones of violet, Payne's grey, a bit of blue, and applying it almost dryish. Okay, that's quite a lot of moisture still there. I'll do a little bit here. That's quite nice, but it's especially nice for painting snow. Painting some of the sharp contrasts. Okay, and once I've done that, I can add some water or a color wash. Let's say I pick up my orange and I just drag it gently. Okay, for snow, that will be really exciting. If I don't have snow, maybe I'll let it be and then pick up the darkness later. So that will be exciting ridges. But if I have extra darkness, can I wash it over? Okay, perhaps a combination of both. Okay, how do I let the nature of the water be a little bit more in charge? I'll start leaning the paper. Letting it run. Okay, so it becomes an interesting approach as well. Okay, but perhaps if I were to do a wash, okay, I'm happy with colors here. For the mountains against the sky, but to do this lovely runny technique, I might plan a wash first. So let's give it another take. Right, I've just done a quick sketch to plan some of my basic shapes of color on the mountains. Almost like plan some of the layers of what I'm going to place where. Actually, maybe if I use a smaller brush, it will be just like a formula planning ahead. So my sky is going to be some of that diluted violet. So that could be quite a primitively applied, just to identify some of the colors. Okay. Okay, and a little bit of that orangey violet mixture. There might be some of that warmth creating depth for the sky, and also it will connect the colors to the terrain below. Right, and then I use some of the indigo and perhaps some Payne's grey. Now, I'm not interested if the effects are going to be exciting here or not. I'm more interested in the color and exploring perhaps a little bit of darkness. But I'm not too worried if I will get my tones wrong. I'm more interested in the color because I'll need to think about how dark my peak is going to be. But that color of orange and violet and blue is going to be more important now. Okay. Gently reflecting here, but it will settle down. Right, maybe some ultramarine for my distant mountains. Okay, so if I'll do a quick line or just block of color there. Okay, if I'll put something a little higher, but it's better. Okay, and now my lower levels of washes. Let's do that one. So I've got some pink. And let's place that ball down. Maybe orange and pink together. Okay, maybe some purple will come later on. Orange is a stronger pigment which could be overlapped. So perhaps this slope will stay more into the orange. Maybe a little bit of purple. Purple and orange will come on the other side to show the flatness of the valley. I can just use any of those colors a little bit more diluted. Just oops, I just need that the other colors will just be adding texture when this area might stay more plain. Right, and then as I'm going higher, because then maybe the intensity of the color, I'm still thinking about the color underneath of my darks. Okay, I've got a little bit of English rose there. Back to some of the purple. Give that lovely warmth to the whole valley. So then maybe the shadow could stay cool. Okay, and perhaps something similar could stay somewhere here. And then a cooler violet and purple as a wash could come above. Again, I might not hit the right darkness straight away. Not too worried about it. But the coolness of the purple, I think I quite like some warmth on its side here. Moving into some lighter pinks. Okay, and then some coolness on the opposite side, so perhaps some ultramarine. When we border in warm and cool colors, we have a stronger three-dimensional effect and tension. It contrasts. Tension is becoming greater. Okay, and then the gaps I'm leaving white. Maybe again occasional purple could come in. Or orange or anything else there. Okay. And then the valley below, that could all remain warm, and maybe going a tiny bit more into the green and orange, kind of just to show that flatness of the area before it starts being steep again. Okay. Then I want to make a more contrast showing where we are, the area, how high up we are. So I'll use that coolness of the color for the path for more exposed rock. And I can do that by making it a little paler, a little bit concentrated in color. The lighter tone will show that exposure to the sky, the light from the sky. Okay. So I need to make a decision to make the valley light and to make this edge of the mountain darker. On the photographs, they're a little bit fighting. There's a bit of darkness on this area, but then it goes lighter. So I need to make that subtone decision. Maybe there will be a darker rock or something, just change of color. So maybe some of these ones will be deliberately more into purples and pinks and blues. Maybe less pinks, more blues and purples. Instead of that grassy area, perhaps I keep that one more cooler, and then the green and some ultramarine will come. Okay, now I need to keep that one darker. Maybe just will stay cool green. Okay. Cool green, maybe emerald green here. So that's my formula of light. Okay. Sorry, light of color. And if I give it a quick dry, I can test some of the textures I wanted to do. And just see how the darknesses actually work on top of the peaks. Right, so I'm going to use a smaller brush now. I'm going for my very dark violet, indigo, a bit of Payne's grey. Almost like thick acrylic, just very much dry pigment. Okay, and let's just bring it a little bit on a few corners here. Now the effect will be very different on a larger scale, but still the kind of capacity and potential of this will be, could be picked up. Okay, the trick to this is to work quite quickly. So this dryish pigment is not going to dry too quickly. So we've got an opportunity to smudge it. Okay, and maybe this one will start come in here, and then maybe I'll work into some of the shapes across here as well. Right, so I'll leave this brush full of pigment aside, and I'll just use some water just to drag some of this moisture across and allow the texture to explore its runniness and also expose its color. I think this is drying quicker than I wanted. Okay, but I'm happy that I actually have got more control, so I don't have to do it all darkness in one go, but the effects I'm starting to get gives me a potential idea. Maybe I'll work with that texture here as well. So maybe my border of the path. Okay, there's something's happening potentially good. Okay, and this river stream could also, okay, get some good connection. Okay, so my mini plan is becoming more lively now. Okay, and that's given me confidence to go ahead with my larger painting. Oh, that could be playfully done as well on a larger scale, that's fine. Okay, just a little directional stuff. Right, and is that a shadow or is that light? So let's turn it to more of a shadow here. So now I'm seeing a little more of the tones. And now if I'm kind of played with the texture, but topping up my tones, blends. Okay. All of that one could come here. So again, it's very much explorative piece. Okay. Gives me insight to the painting. So this is not a masterpiece, it's just a lovely study, quick and full of potential. Great. So now I'm ready to get going. Right, so first I'm going to bring a little bit of color to the sky with a sponge. So my formula practice told me to do a little bit of violet. Okay, so perhaps some of that soft violet could come in here. Something in between them. Clouds, shadows, a little bit of orange, maybe a tiny bit more diluted. Because I'm working with a sponge, I don't really need to dampen the paper. It does it on its own. Okay, maybe it's a tiny bit more yellowish orange. And maybe that softness of warmth will come across here as well. Okay, and the sponge is very soft. Natural sponges are quite hard, so I'm just using a normal car washing sponge, which is very soft in its nature. Okay, that's good. Anything else lighter or warmer towards the horizon? Perhaps we might just get covered with some of the cooler grays and blues, but maybe a little hint of it there. Be there. Right, and then I can go for my indigo. And indigo and a bit of Payne's grey. I want to have it less blue. If it's too much water, I need to squeeze my sponge. Right, so let's get this darkness here. Okay, painting over my masking tape. I'm just trying to see how much darkness is going to come over my mountains. So it's darkness is there in the clouds, but perhaps a little softer way it's approaching the mountain. Okay, maybe something dragging there across, keeping a little bit of color opportunity for later on. Okay, and there's another darker tone. Again, you can start slightly darker and then smudge it away, soften its borders with the back of the sponge. Okay, maybe a tiny bit more. Clean out edges, breaking some of that grey. Okay, creating some drama in the sky, but at the same time, my mountains will be taking more attention, so that softness will stay there. Gonna bring a tiny bit of indigo. A little softer here. Softness is there. I'd like some of that darkness. Quite a free strokes, kind of Turner-esque effect of free movement and energy through the clouds. So that's quite nice. Not sure about that shape, so perhaps just persuading it to go a little further. Little flakes and drags of drags of colors. They're quite nice. Quite like this side now. Tiny bit more perhaps. Of uniting this shadow. I'm just waiting for it gently to dry. Maybe a double violet, that variety of color there as well. A bit too dark. Okay, here we go. It will dry paler, so that I can still work on my mountain stronger as well. Just looking at any repetitive marks, or can I get any extra light naturally via with the sponge. Kind of, I want still to have a little light around the mountain. Okay. So then, yeah, that looks a bit more of a line of that orange. Can that be more persuaded? Okay. So that light is there. Orangey light. Let's see, that softness will remain there as well. Right, let's just see how this is going to dry. Any sharper marks, gently persuade it to stay within the form of the clouds we need. Now it's harder for you to see what's happening here, as it's still a little reflecting, but I think that's better now. Okay, so while that one is drying, I can evaluate it a bit more afterwards. Perhaps I could have done a little bit less touching about of the surface, but it's done now. Right, next I'm going to follow my colors for the mountains. I think I'm going to block them with a sponge now as well. Maybe a little bit of coolness for the mountains with a brush, and then come back with a sponge. So I've used some lovely fresh ultramarine. Okay. And let's block it as a shape. I'll start with a little bit more solid outline. And now I can smudge it very easily with a sponge, and by diluting the line with a tiny bit of water with a damp brush. So I'm just cleaning the brush and just softening some of blue. If I need more defined lines later, I can always do that. So far, I just want the presence of the color. And make this blue coming close to the ridge I'm working in. Okay, and this one is still blue. That's where the drawing is important. I don't need to think too much. I'm just following some of the shapes, and that planning of is that two repetitive ridges, or is it two parallel lines, or is it some other consideration for composition I need to bear in mind? That's already in place. I'm just following the shapes. Okay, that's a little softer as well. Right, and let's bring my colors. So some orange, some pink. Okay. If it will run together with a blue, that will be even better. And there was some lovely orange on this side. A little extra water. Okay, a bit more rose madder. And then I move to the English rose. So that's kind of brownish red. And I think also a little bit of purple as well. So I'm looking at my color sketch to get some reference. It doesn't have to be painted with a sponge. Sometimes it is easier, sometimes it's a little bit more two big shapes come out, so I can always swap my sponge for a brush. Okay, that's a little extra red. And then some purple. Okay, the colors are important. So then when I do the darker, cooler washes, they support it. They've got enough light to support it. Okay, any of these tops. And just a little bit of extra color injected there, and I want its extra coolness for this shadow. Before the valley continues. Constantly controlling how much water I've got on my brush. Tissue is always or in my hand or next to my paints. Maybe not always showing on the screen, but that control is or allowing extra moisture, or the opposite, making it just the right consistency, right? And then I'm going for a cooler edge here. Maybe that little light will remain. And then orangey green could come lower. Okay, that's a strong green, so let's reduce inside of it, in the volume proportion of it. Make the colors merge. Maybe even bring tiny bit of that color across. I think I've got a good opportunity of it here. Okay. See, that's not going to be dry, so I'm softening the borders. Anyway, I need to change kind of from light to dark. And let's bring some of that beautiful orange, red block of color here. And again, just vary it with a little bit of purple. I think fresh purple will be better. Okay, maybe even a hint of violet there as well. So that will give me base for this corner, and then how it will blend with the cool colors in this orange as well. And again, some more of the diluted purple, something here. The little white gaps left, I tend to get rid of them. Often they're harder to remove later. Okay, and let's go for some coolness. Right, last pale wash of warmth is here. And then the coolness of the ultramarine. And it will start mixing with some of the violet. I can define that silhouette a little bit more with my dry brushing. Okay, I just want to have that coolness against the, oops, it's a good smudge and ball. Let's see what we can do with that. Oh, that's quite nice. Any other warmth here? Just a little hint of it in this cooler corner. I think I found a nice color to connect with blues here. Again, I'm thinking of tone, but I need to just continue thinking of color, color, color. Tones will come later. And that paler shadow will start coming across here as well. Okay. And some extra coolness all need to be covered here. And then my cooler blues will come on. Been waiting for this area to dry so that I can put straight away a good contrast. And then this contrast moves into paler purples and then a lighter grassy green. Green and orange. Maybe actually a little bit cooler first. cooler green first. Okay, a little bit more cooler still. Maybe I could have gone even for emerald green. Most importantly, this area will stay lighter by the time a shadow will come at the back. Okay, and the rest could remain much cooler, but lighter here as well. So then I can see something warmer at the top, cool at the bottom. Maybe if I'll just go for my blue. Okay, blocking is almost done. This is touched up. Okay, so where I do still have a little bit of white gaps, I will cover it. If any bits from the drawing left, sometimes a few imperfections, best leaving them out. I've got little gaps here. So if I start fixing them now, it's kind of partially drying stage. It will just start spreading around, so easier to work over it when it's dry. Right, let's take a photo here. Any other greens to connect here? Maybe a quick becoming more darker than greener, but that's okay. That's what will be fine. Right, I'm gonna let it dry now and start working into the darkness, but already by looking at that warmth and coolness, it starts creating that drama, that's spatial awareness of the valley. Getting quite exciting. Right, I'm going to use now a slightly larger brush for the dry pigment, so I can cover slightly different kind of volumes of surfaces. That's my testing corner. I'm going to start perhaps with a little bit of violet and indigo. Okay, so that will wash just blue, and that will wash much more violet. So I'm hoping I picked up something in between. Okay, and I'll be working on it this time much quicker straight away. Now, I think if I pick up, start working on my main peak, then the proportion of that shadow will dictate how much or how little I'll add elsewhere. Right, so we have a flat starting point here. So I'm going to create some dry brush marks and some bit more solid, and some just little dabs of silhouettes of perhaps individual rocks. I said I'm going to do a little bit, but I want to kind of perhaps a slope here. Okay. And let's use the Chinese brush to make that color run. Okay, so that's quite a solid violet in there. Okay, just going to persuade it to go where I want it to go. keep washing my brush so I'm not dragging all the darkness, but allowing the colors to run. Okay. Also will take time for pigment to kind of continue running. I think if I'll go for some indigo now to vary my shadows color. Maybe a bit less water. Okay, some more fresh water. Anything too rigid, just to let it be. And perhaps just a little hints of marks on the way, little addition of gentle color. Okay, that's getting more the way I want it texture wise. Can I extend it a little further to have that texture showing? And perhaps plan some of the wider shadows. One way and the other way as well. Because that just little connection of blue, or whatever that color might be, running the other side of the slope gives us that immediate shadow. Okay, so that's getting exciting. Right, anything else I can do here? And then connecting those two corners. My width of the brush gives me almost similar marks of darkness, so I want it to appear more of a shadow and a shape rather than a line, but also don't want to over paint the darkness. Okay, there, okay. I'll keep an eye on this. Running corner. And now let's make this actually happening. Actually, okay, that's better now as well. Okay, anything going the opposite direction. Okay, so that attention is staying at the front. Okay, this is finding its way out. Let's see what's going to happen. I'll just spontaneously decided to kind of burst it bank. Maybe while that one is developing, I can bring tiny bit of texture. So this slope, maybe just lifting small amount of shadow. So I have to start with kind of partially a line, and then I need to make sure it develops into more than a line. The line is gone, but we've got something sharper and softer. Okay, that's exciting. Sometimes also create loads of wonderful effects, but the whole picture doesn't work. So effects are effects. But we have to think of overall image. Okay, this is something interesting, but I've got a lovely runniness still to come. Okay, right, let's connect it a little bit more to the lower part and the shadow, maybe little peaks, lower shadow here. There's still a shadow to come this side. I quite like the combination of the blues and violets. So perhaps another violet shadow. So to avoid lines, I tend to use the side of the brush, create more of a shape. And then drag the water, not just down, but perhaps sideways. You can always do it. It will always run directly down. And if I wanted a lot of shadow remaining here in place, I want that to stay on here more solidly. Loads of kind of texture and sharpness in this corner allows us to take it in as a close by element. Yeah, shadow, it's close to us. It's take that attention away, but at the same time, too many little things. I think at some point I will have to summarize some of them. Draw on top of the wet surface. Yes, that's another option. Okay, I've got a line, just want a little more of a shape. Okay, let's leave that one there. Right, and now a little bit more at the back. Let's find my dark pointy peak. Just making sure I have actually got a dry pigment, not just a dark paint, because the dark paint is not going to run much. The pigment, more solid pigment will. So I'll do a little bit here and then come back. Two parallel lines for me here, but now I can wash some of them off, and also that extra darkness can be washed down by adding that moisture. So my pencil marks again for those slopes allow me to think of the direction. Well, not so much think, but pick up the direction. Okay, loads of lines, 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 but also can I do more of a shape? So combining some of these runny shapes becomes more exciting than the linear work. I'm quite liking some of that light. Do I need it left? Can I put a shadow, more softer shadow? Okay. And change of directions, change of those slopes. Okay, that nice softness of the valley. Okay, some of these shapes are looking too similar in size. Okay, can I combine them? Can I make a little more them less distinguished? Okay, that's good. That's a lovely shape, but it's a bit too perfectly found. I want it to be partially lost, partially found. Okay, anywhere else as well would be partially lost and found. Okay, and let's have a look at the opposite side of the valley. Well, this one is a little bit runny still. Let's have some of this one. Connecting to dry, too wet, so that dry brushing is not quite there, but it's okay. Again, it's continue working its way. It's continuing to move. Okay, right, let's have a look at this corner of the valley. Right, I worked well with river there in the past, so let's start with tiny bit of, maybe not actually a darker runny pigment, but maybe just diluted color to have gentle connection at the back. Quite like this light. It's actually needed to be a shadow here. That was a shadow. You go over. On the terrain, and then it's start linking to the river. So if I'll use my Chinese brush to do that thinner line of the river, zigzag, and then I can vary it intensity by softening some of that, by dragging it upwards, by washing some of it. so it's not a consistent line, but a playful one. Okay, and a little bit of darkness to the valley as well. Wanted some softness, but and flatness, but subtones of that light will be lovely as well. Not too much texture, otherwise it's gonna start not looking flat, but way too volume. I quite like that detail, but on a bigger picture it jumps out too much, so let's make it disappear. Right, and a little extra shadows coming at the top. And connecting slightly here. Maybe there's a cloud casting that shadow. Maybe that light is changing suddenly. Okay, that's good. I'm gonna let it be, and it also gives me good darkness at the front. I don't like that line, bit of a worm of a shape. So again, just softening a direct border. Good for the valley, don't need that perfection. And still my front rocks could benefit from its softness. Okay, so there might be some group of rocks here, just gently protruding on the by the path. To have that, if I'll put a lot of attention of texture like here, they will start competing. So my focal point is staying there. I will still work on the river and its shadow. Now I can see some of the paper is drying and some of it is still tiny bit damp. It's a little bit more lost and found. Again, I can tiny bit come back to that corner as it dries. Any other darker tones on my mountains, that one's dried much lighter. So I can come back there with my dry pigment again. So I've got the first layer of it already done. I want that this shadow continue to develop as well, perhaps connect it all here. And I'm ready for this shadow as well. I do it partially using that runniness of the existing and partially will introduce fresh water. It starts looking quite dark, but I know by the time it's actually does run further, it will become lighter. So I'm going over my edge of the where we're standing, so that blue is now this lighter blue gives us that border. I'm not sure if I can get it all in one go. Might need to do another layer to get the right darkness here. Lovely border, but a little too perfectly sharp. Can I take some of it off? Yeah, it still looks like a border, but it's not overly unrealistic. So the same, if I pick up some of the moisture here and lift some of the sharpness, it still give me the border, but not as a strong contrast. Okay, that's good. Anything else here? Goes with my details to final stages. A little here. I need losing the shape of the river, but it doesn't matter. It could be a nice slope, and the river could be always touched up or even a little redirected, but that's becoming a nice shadow, kind of uniting that slope a bit more as well. Okay, I'm just checking again for any similar mark making of light. Can I reduce them so they're not too repetitive? Get suddenly that light. And I need a little connection of it to this side now. Okay, this ridge I was trying to soften and sharpen. It's again, the water settles down, gives me again a sharper border. So again, I'll persevere, partially soften it. Now I can touch up my path and evaluate the last stages. slightly fresher ultramarine. Couple of peaks, or just little hints of peaks. And my paths, I'm going to have that violety and orangey color here. Some rocky terrain, getting a smaller, larger scale of the shadows. Where that's turning doesn't matter, we don't need to know exactly. Tiny bit of something larger here. Brings it a slightly different kind of texture, but different texture to that softness. And this is my masking tape, so that will remain dark anyway. Okay, that's good. Maybe tiny bit more. I'll make my brush slightly ruggedy. Okay, maybe tiny bit more wet and ruggedy. And I can do a last texture. Drag. Okay, I think somewhere here I could do is a little more texture. Anything I don't like, I can smudge, so persevere with that mark making. Okay, that's good. Combining that together. Just waiting for some of the darks to dry on the side. I think I might wait for the river to dry and touch it gently up. But otherwise, I'm quite happy with what I ended up with. That lovely orange here as well. I wasn't too sure how it will dry, but it actually supports the sky and the mountains really well as well. So fun and exciting texture on the mountain with some planning ahead and playful, that's a runny one as well, and playful texture on top. I hope you enjoyed watching me tonight. If you'd like to give it a go, or if you've got any questions, please let me know as well. But otherwise, thank you very much for tonight.